Encourage? Yes. Look, we have a lot of foreign automakers who make their cars in the U.S., and some of that was the result of trade policies where we made it more attractive for them to build a plant here than to import the cars from Germany or Japan. At the margin, yes, it will encourage some investment in the United States, but at a cost. And the question is, for how much are we going to pay and higher consumer prices for every job that's created here? And how many of these manufacturing plants that open here are actually going to employ a lot of workers as opposed to be highly automated facilities? So yes, at the margin it'll make a difference, but as a macroeconomic thing, if you think of the good of the U.S. economy as a whole, I think it's pretty clear to me it's a negative.
The jobs of the 50s and the 60s aren't coming back.
No, and remember, manufacturing employment is a very small fraction of all employment in the United States, less than 10%. So Bob Lighthizer, who was the intellectual machine of the trade policy in the first Trump administration, who for some reason didn't get one of the jobs this time around, in his book, he basically says, I think it's a good deal for America if consumers pay more for what they consume in order for us to have more manufacturing jobs in the United States. Well, I'm not sure that if the question were put that way, a lot of consumers and voters in the United States would actually agree with that. But they elected a president and some members of Congress who do believe that. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. Remember, in Trump's first term, inflation wasn't an issue. Well, we've learned that Americans do not like inflation. And Democrats are going to point out every price increase that's tied to Trump tariffs. They're going to blame it on President Trump and his trade policies. And they're going to get some support from the Fortune 500 and maybe the Walmarts and Amazons of the world. And we'll see how popular these policies prove to be if they're really put in effect.
You know, speaking of rising prices, is it smart for consumers today, anticipating higher tariffs and higher prices, to make big purchases or stock up on stuff?
I don't know. I read that some people are doing that and some companies are pushing that as a tactic to get more sales. I can understand if you're a company and you sell something that's imported from China, that it might make sense to fill your warehouse now in the hopes that you can get in before the tariffs are imposed. I don't think that most consumers are that sensitive to, not that many things we buy that would go up in price so much that it'd be worth, you're going to buy 10 years worth of socks to avoid a price increase. I don't know about that.
Maybe replace your fridge.
I mean, there's always this game with cars. If there's going to be tariffs on cars, do you want to buy one now, but you have to offset that by what's happening in the auto market and what incentives are available and what tax credits for EVs are available now that might not be available if Trump and the Republicans do away with them. So it's a pretty big calculation. I'm personally not like stocking my cellar with French wine in anticipation of tariff increases.
We're speaking with David Wessel. He spent decades as a journalist covering economics. He is now an economist at the Brookings Institution. We'll talk more after this break. This is Fresh Air.
Supporting WHYY, the Philadelphia Orchestra. Music and artistic director Yannick Nézet-Séguin and the orchestra perform your favorite carols and classics with a jazz twist. With music like Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn's jazz spin on Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker, and featuring a sparkling jazz trio and guest singers, this festive celebration is as vibrant as it is heartwarming. Yannick's Holiday Mixtape in concert, December 12th and 13th. Tickets at philorg.org.
This is Fresh Air, and we're speaking with Brookings Institution economist David Wessel about what to expect from the incoming Trump administration, which has appointed an economics team and is embracing a sweeping agenda, including higher tariffs. So let's talk about tax cuts, the tax cuts that Trump has said he wants to get accomplished. The tax cuts that came from the 2017 bill passed in his first term, the Tax Cuts and Job Act. Many of the provisions in that law will expire at the end of 2025, so that's going to be an issue, and he wants to renew those, right? First of all, what was the impact on the deficit of the tax cuts of 2017?